Hi, we're back again, and we're going to go ahead and build this wall here using the traditional block method. And I need a different block, so I'm going to hit, I'm in creative, I don't need to use the workbench, so I'm just going to hit I for, I use I believe the default is tab to find your inventory. And then I'm going to go over to the right hand side and hit crafting. And I'm going to choose something different for our walls. Everything is really white. I don't think I want white. Maybe we'll go with this light sandstone color. That's not bad. And we'll just use a regular block for now. And we'll go over here, and we are going to, because we have snapping enabled right now, I'm going to turn that off by hitting enter, and I'm going to turn the grid on, hit G, and I'm going to go with full size, and that will adhere it to the edge of the back here. Now I'm just going to walk this right on over, and I want a single row of blocks. Okay, so there's the basis for our wall. And because we're using blocks, I don't need to even think about where I'm going to put doors and windows. I can just build the wall. So it's 20, that's our next block. And here we go with our third row. And we are going to have to probably jump up to get the next row, because I don't think I can reach up there. No. So that is one of the disadvantages, I think, to building in this method. I'm just going to put a block down here to stand on. And I'm going to hit the fourth row. Yeah, it wants to do more, but we don't need that. And I'm going to need another block to stand on. There is scaffolding, but we're not going to bother with that right now. Oh, come on, come on. I was hitting the right button instead of the left to stretch it out, and now I hit right to place them. Okay, so we've got a block that's 5 blocks tall. Now, why did I make it 5 blocks tall? Well, because the character that we are is roughly a little under 4 blocks tall, about, I would say, 3.5, going by where my eye level is. And so our doors that come with the game, let's go and get one. The standard door height, it's under furnishings. The standard door height is, let's just get a regular door. And we'll have to paint it if we wanted a color. Yes, you can paint things. So we'll craft that. And I'm showing you this to show you that the standard size for a door is 4 blocks by 2 blocks. So the standard block size, 4 blocks by 2 blocks. And there's our door. And you can rotate the door like so. Doors should open inwards, so it really should go this way. Now, what I want to do is figure out where I want to put this door and then open up a spot for it. And because we placed regular blocks, we can do that. I'm going to turn the grid back on so we can see where the blocks are, because we will have to take the blocks out. So let's put a back door in our house, and let's put it like, let's say there. All right? So I can't just put it there. I have to first take out the blocks. So I'm going to go to my hammer. I could use a pick, but I'll just use the hammer. and I will that's 3 by 2 and we want 4 by 2. So that should be a space big enough for the door. Let's look and see. There's our door. Now, using the 1 block grid, you'll see that the door wants to be placed either on the outer edge or the inner edge of that wall, but that's not where we want it. So how do we get it to snap to the right place? Well, we can make the grid smaller by hitting the plus or minus keys. So we're going to hit minus. Now that will make it half, and that will put the door exactly in the center, and I think that's where I want it to be. So I'm going to hold down the right key, and that places the door. Now, one of the things that kind of irritates me, let me move this door out of the way now. One of the things that kind of irritates me about these doors is that they don't open all the way. But that's okay. I mean, it's okay. But the thing that isn't really good about where we've placed this door is that it opens into the corner. In other words, you have to go into the corner to get out. And I don't really like that. I think most of the time when you have a house that has a door sort of near the corner, the door is going to open the other direction. So how do we make that happen? So what we can do is we hold down F to remove the door. And it's going to let us pick it up. But if you see the green arrows down at the bottom there, it's indicating that the door is going to open that direction. So we go back to our C menu, our radial menu, and we see this, flip mirror. So what this does is it will take any object that you are currently holding and it will flip it. So there, it flipped the door. I can let go of that now. It flipped the door so that now when we place it, the door is still going to open into the house, but it's going to open in the other direction. So there we go. We have a door. Now, let's say we're going to put some windows in. And let's move the door again. Let's just trash the door. We don't need that. So because we built this house or this wall, I'm going to get rid of these two. Because we built this wall out of blocks, we can just choose where we want our windows to go. So if we choose, let's go and choose some windows first. So I'm going to get my inventory and then my crafting and go to, we're under furnishings. I'm going to scroll down to windows and pick out a window frame. It's showing you different types of window frames, but you can choose the color after you choose the type. So I'm going to go with this classical square window frame. I'm going to select the variant, and that's going to give us the different colors. Now we don't have any kind of color scheme in mind here, so let's just choose maybe this greenish gray color. And it looks like it's a different sort of a texture too. Let's see, what do we want? This one maybe. Let's make one of those. Okay. So now we have a window, and the standard window, excuse me, the standard window, first of all, we're going to have to rotate it, right? Because it's not rotated in the right direction. So let's rotate it so that it's flush with the wall. And this window is not going where we want it to. Why is that? Well, I don't know, but this is just the way that it reacts with this grid. But if we change the grid size it's going to, then we will be able to place it better. Now, let's say we like this size, but we could resize it. We could make it wider or taller. I like to make the windows about the height of the doors. That's not always a given in a room, but sometimes that works. And maybe we want this to be a little bit taller. So I'm going to hold down Shift and page up. And now it's not lining up. Let's hit that one more time and make it just a little bit taller. Now it's going to line up better. I could have just changed the grid and went with that size, and I might do that. This seems like an awfully big window. Let's change the grid size. I'm going to make it smaller. And let's change our window height. Yeah, I think that's better. And I'm going to line that up right about there. But it has to be a full block size, remember, because we built this wall out of blocks. So I can't place it, say, there, because that's more than a single block. And I'll prove that by increasing the grid size to 1 block. See, that wouldn't work. So we couldn't place it there. We have to pull the blocks out one at a time. So that is one of the limitations of building with full blocks, is that you have to use the block sizes as your openings for your windows. So let's first off make a spot for our window, and then we're going to have to resize the window again to fit the window size. So let's move over here, let's say about 2 blocks, and the height of the door. Oh, that's 1 block, but that's okay. And I don't want to go down to 1 block above the floor. I want to keep it a little bit higher. So let's say that's the size that we're going to go with our window. And that might actually be the default size. Let me just check. So there's my window. And I've already changed the size, but I think if I hit Shift Backspace, yeah, it's going to go back to the default size. And now when I try to put it in, you see the grid is not letting it line up with that hole for some reason. You'd think that it would, but it doesn't. So let's change the grid size and see if that helps. Oh, look, it does. So now it fits perfectly. What happens if I hit Enter, which is the snapping? Oh, look, it's going to snap in a different direction. Well, that's not helpful. So I think what we're going to do then is we're going to turn snapping off and just use the grid, but now it's not rotated correctly. So we're going to have to rotate it. And now it's going to fit, and it's going to fit in the center. But what if I didn't want it in the center? What if I wanted it to be, not on the edge, but sort of close to the edge? Well, how am I going to do that? So one way I could do that is to turn the grid off and place it by eye. I could do that, but then I'd have to make sure that I got all of the windows placed exactly the same. And how can I do that? Well, the easiest way would be to turn the grid back on, make the grid smaller, say that size, and then I can decide where I want it to be placed. Well, I'm thinking like right about there. So now I can count the number of squares on the inside, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a sliver of the 5th one, and place the window there. And then my next window, let's say I want to put it here, or roughly, let's say 2 blocks away from this window, right? So I'm going to use my hammer to take out another block and see where we are. Did I get that in the right spot? Yeah. So we know it's 4 blocks. And now I'm going to place the window again. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a sliver of the next square, and place my window in. So building a wall in this way is pretty darn easy, but you are limited in what you can do. And I don't know about you, but my walls are just not that thick. So it does sort of limit your realism, let's just say that. Let's put another couple of windows in, and I'm just going to I think because we're 1 block away from the door, we're 2 blocks between the windows. Let's say we're going to go 2 blocks between this window and the next window. So right about there, and I'm going to open up that grid bigger so I know where that is. So it's right there. I'm going to get my hammer and probably have to walk a little closer. And I'm going to move over, and I'm going to go 2 blocks away. Is that 2 blocks or 3 blocks? Whoops. 2 blocks. Sometimes it would be helpful if you could enable the grid when you're not holding an item, but so far you can't. So again, I need to change that grid size back down so I can place that where I want it. And there you go. So changing the grid size, turning off snapping, makes it a lot quicker to do this sort of placement. But now you see what the limitations are. You have a door and windows placed, but the wall is very thick, which is just fine if you're building like an adobe house. And there's no trim or anything like that. Now, if you were going to put trim in, you would have to do that probably before you do the windows, because it's going to look not quite right if you do it after you place the windows, because it will cover up your window frames. Same with your door. You could take the door out, put the trim in, and then resize the door, and that's a valid way of doing it, but it does make your door smaller. The other thing is that wall takes up a whole block, so it made the room quite a bit smaller. Now I could have made the base bigger to accommodate that, but I just wanted to show you, you know, the difference between that and real construction. So then, what is real construction in this game? Well, there's a couple of ways you could approach it. You could actually go in and build a stick wall, and I've done that, and then you can put your siding and your plaster board on the inside. And let's do that real quick and see what happens. See what are the limitations and difficulties with that. It certainly takes longer. If you're looking to build a house quickly, this is the quickest way, because you don't have to make too many decisions at the get-go. You can very easily place those blocks quickly, and it's easy to get your windows to fit, and there you go. You got a wall with windows and a door. Simple, easy. But what if you want to do something a little different? Well, let's try it. Let's choose a wood piece for our framing. We're going to go ahead and make framing just as if we were on a regular construction site. So let's choose a wood for framing. Yeah, I don't know what it should be, but let's choose this one. No, that's not what I want. Let's choose, I use this one a lot for regular lumber. So let's use that. And we're going to go with a block, and we're going to craft that. Okay, so we know, I'm gonna talk about measurements really quickly. We know that a door, in the US, a door is 6.5 feet tall. That's the standard size. In Europe and the rest of the world, they use centimeters and meters, and that's basically what our units in Rising World are based on. So a door in Rising World is the equivalent of about 200 centimeters, which is just a little bit over 6.5 feet. It's like 6.7 or 6.8, something like that. And so if we know that, then we know that we need to make everything kind of fit that and expand out from there in a consistent and a manner that is human scale, basically. So if we take our block over here, and we know that a door is 6.5 feet tall, then we can make, and we know that our building is, or our room is roughly 8 feet tall, or whatever that is in centimeters. And I'm not, because I'm a dumb American, I don't know what the actual conversion is. I'm just going to make this smaller for right now. Stop that. Stop it. I'm going to back up so I can see what I'm doing. And here's one of the things I don't like about the way Rising World works, is if I'm aiming at the floor, I can't see the top of my wall. So I have to aim at the wall. And that's too tall, right? Okay, so that is the same height as that other wall there. But I want to make wood framing, right? So this is too thick. So I need to go to my my radial menu here, and I want to choose my scale. So right now I have it set on half a block. Well, I want to make this, let's say, 0.1, and let's see if that gets us to where we want to be. So that would be 0.2, and I'm actually just going to eyeball this for size, and I'm trying to make like a 2x4. I'm not sure what they call that in Europe, but we call it a 2x4. I know that they use similar size lumber in Europe, but they call it something else. So that looks about right to me. Right? Yeah, that looks about right. So that's a 2x4. That is the height of our building. So we're going to come over here, and because we're going to put siding on this house, we're going to go ahead and put this flush with the other. What am I hearing? I'm hearing foxes in a world that has no animals. That's weird. I'm going to try and align this with this wall, but as you can see with this particular grid, it's not going to align properly. And if I turn on snapping, it's really not going to align properly. So I'm going to turn off snapping, and I'm going to adjust my grid. I'm going to go smaller first, and then I'm going to bring it out to the edge. And that's pretty close, but it's not perfect. Let's go even smaller. Now that is pretty close to perfect. Not exactly perfect, but it's pretty darn close. Now I'm going to go with that, or yeah, that'll do. That'll do. And now I'm going to hit Control, because I've got that where I want it, and I'm going to put that in place by right-clicking. Okay, so it's in place, but I'm still holding it. I've got Control engaged, and I'm going to change my grid size so that I can move this in increments that make sense to me visually. So I'm thinking that let's see, how will that move? 1, 2, 3. I'm thinking that the studs should be about that far apart. So I'm going to go with that. Oops, too much. And look what happened. So it's not good there. Now, normally when you're building with sticks in the real world, in real world construction, this would often happen. So what would we have to do? Well, we'd have to make this one closer. So I'm going to change the grid again, and there we go. So that works. Now we can put a top plate and a bottom plate. Is this necessary? Absolutely not. And I will show you another way where you don't do this. But it's fun, to me, it's fun to try and build with real world construction. So I still have control on, and I'm going to leave it on for now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down the right control button on my keyboard, and I'm going to see which one of these, page up or page down, or one of my arrow keys will move this in the direction that I want it to go, or will rotate it. There we go. So it's going to rotate it. It's going to rotate it based on the center, because we have local rotation on. So I'm going to put that back. I'm going to go back to my C menu, and I'm going to see what happens if I change it to default. Now my bet is that it's going to rotate from the bottom, but we'll see. So I'm going to hold down control. I'm going to hit page up. Nope, still going from the center. That's okay. All right, so now we're horizontal, and I still have control on. So I'm going to move this into place. I'm currently using the right control button, which seems a little bit weird, but now I think that needs to be up a little bit, right about there. And now I'm going to hit the plus key to make that bigger again, and I'm going to try to find the right key to move this. In this case, it's the page up button, which seems strange, but that's what it is. And I'm going to place that. And because I still have it selected, I can just move another one into place, like so. And a collision won't matter. So now I have a bottom plate, and I want to get a top plate put on. So I'm going to figure out which button will do that for me. In this case, it is the left arrow. Now, when I say which button, because I have different modes of movement, I'm using local movement or world movement. I don't know which one I'm using at the moment. Let's just see. Movement. I'm using local movement. But it's not reacting the way I would have thought. I would have thought page up and page down. Let's try world default movement and try page down. Yeah, now that is moving more in the way I would expect. So in this case, default works for the movement. So I'm going to make my grid smaller again and move that up. That's pretty good. We'll go smaller again to the very smallest size, which you can barely see, but there it is. And we're going to move it up a little bit more. And that seems to be about right. And I'm going to place that. And then I'm going to move it over and place it again. Okay, so now we have a stick-built wall. But what am I going to do? I don't have a place to put my window. Now see, this is one of the disadvantages of building this way, is that you have to plan in advance for your windows and doors, and I didn't do that. But I can go ahead and put in a window or door just by figuring out where I want it. Let's change this grid so we can see. I want it to align on the top with this window. So I'm going to choose this grid line that lines up with this window. And I'm going to put this over here. Then I'm going to hit Control. And I'm going to move that into place by changing my grid to smaller, because I want to move that up a little bit. That's about right. Now let's go smaller. And up a little bit. I think that will work. So I'm just finagling it into place in a way that satisfies me. And I need to decide where I want this window to be. I think I want it to be like right here. I could put it in the center. Let's put it in the center. So I'm going to move this over. And obviously I don't need this board to be this long. Not that anyone is going to see it ever when it's finished, but that's about the size I want it to be, I think. Okay, so I'm going to place that, and then I'm going to decide, well, this is where I want it to end, and so I'm going to change my grid again to the larger size so I can see what's going on. I want it to be about here, so I'm going to move this down. And then I'm going to change my grid size again to a smaller amount and move it back up. And I'm going to double check that. Let's just turn the grid off for a second. I'm going to move it up just a little bit. Okay, now the reason I'm not aligning that perfectly is because I want to make space so that I can put trim in. And I think that's about where I want it to be. Maybe a little bit down. Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. So, what do we do about this while we take it out? Oops. Darn it, I should have placed that and I did not. All right. Let's use snapping in a way that I think will work. There we go. Now we're snapping to that horizontal board. So I'm going to hit Control, and I am going to turn on my grid again and get that roughly into place, and turn the grid off and just kind of eyeball that in to where I think it needs to go. Okay, now it doesn't look like it's aligned perfectly this way, but I think that will do. All right, now we can take this board out. Okay, so there we go. We have our opening, we have our framing. The next step would be to put our siding on, and then put our trim around the window on, and then put the window in, just like in real construction. So I think that this particular episode is probably over time. So the next episode will have us putting on siding and doing windows and doing construction in a more traditional way, not the block way, but this way. And then we'll do another wall that will turn out looking like this wall, but doesn't have the frame inside and is probably a little bit easier. So that's all for now, and we'll do some other stuff in the next video. Thanks. Bye.